Hey everybody, welcome back to the 38th episode of Taps and Patience. Despite that intro, I am very tired. Hi, how you guys doing? There's more to that intro, but I'm tired. So
Yeah, you maxed out the mic there for a second.
Oh, did I? Okay. Nothing like a little clipping to get started off in the morning. Or
So how we doing?
I'm tired.
Me too. It's been a long week. I say that it's just getting started, but it's going to be a long week.
Yeah. Same. I'm actually tired. Man. We had some family activities over the weekend. We had a family reunion.
That's good.
A couple hours away, and those things are fun, but very rarely relaxing.
Yeah.
So that's really the main reason that I'm worn out.
Sounds good. I had to drop my wife off at the airport, which was a couple hour drive each way. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of the week, I'm going to be driving to Tennessee to go pick her up. So I'm going to have a 4-day week. I was hoping I could have worked yesterday, but I had to go drop my wife at the airport, and then I'm not going to have Friday. So it's going to be, instead of a 6-day week, a 4-day week.
Yep.
Which sounds like it'd be nice, except we got a ton of work to get done before that.
Yeah.
Although today was a productive day, so we got a lot done today.
Days off when you own a business are not as fun when you know that you have a whole bunch of work that you could be doing.
Yeah, that's very true.
I get that.
It's a weird shift, for sure, but it's also kind of nice because it it's one of those things that I always complained about whenever I worked for someone else was my effort does not influence how well I succeed as directly as it does for your own business. Like,
correct.
That there's pros and cons to that. The pro is if I put in more effort, I'm going to make more. The con to that is when I stop putting in that effort, that money's going to stop too.
Yep.
versus when you're working for someone else, if you have a couple bad days, you're going to get the same paycheck regardless. And vice versa, if you work your butt off, you're going to get the same regardless. So it's kind of a little less incentivizing, but yeah, it's a lot more incentivizing when you're running your own thing.
Yep, definitely. The way I always described like why I went into go into a business, at least from a financial sense, is it's kind of like the difference between paying rent or buying a house. When you have a job, you're doing work for somebody else, and you get a value of compensation that's slightly less than what you're earning that company. You're making that company $1.20, you're earning $1.
Mm-hmm.
When you are owning a business, you put in $1, and how do I word this? So you put in $1, you get back $1.20 in terms of return, but you're also building an investment in that business. You have equity in that business that you can then capitalize on down the line, either in terms of the business has grown or you need to sell the business at some point or whatever.
Yeah. Yep.
So you get the same value plus a little bit of bonus.
Yeah. Except for us specifically, in pretty much any businesses that start out like we have, you put in $1 and you might get lucky if you get 50 cents back.
Yeah. At this point, I'm paying like 10 cents to pay $1. That's basically where I'm at.
But that's okay, because with this, you start to that 50 cents turns into 60 and then turns into 70, yep. And eventually it becomes positive. So we're definitely starting to see that on our end.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, my local customers kind of dropped off the radar, and I'm pretty much only Xometry right now.
Really?
So I'm a little nervous about that.
Yeah.
But in talking to my contact there, it sounds like they have a lot of really big projects that are probably all going to hit at the same time, and so they're just waiting on engineering. So that just means I'm going to get overwhelmed after I've got
all
a full
at the same time.
Yep. So that's going to be fun. And with my track record, it's going to happen on the Friday that I leave.
Yeah, of course.
But it is what it is. So what's been going on with you?
a couple things. Still working on getting the carabiner production perfected. The cores are ready to go into production. I'm happy with that process. I've proven it out on smaller programs, and I'm just waiting
Nice.
for the material to come in. The scales are getting there. I was hoping that at the end of the day today, I would be saying that I am production ready. And technically, I could go into production and make good parts. Though I am running
Okay.
into a problem where there is a freaking crap ton of screws in my fixture to make the scales.
Yes.
And it is slow. It's doable, but it's slow. There's like 200 screws I have to put in and then take out to make those scales.
And you're doing that while the machine's idle?
Currently, yes.
Okay. So for you, a big upgrade would be something like a Pearson pallet system where you could put them on a pallet and then offline you could be putting in or taking out screws in between runs. Or is the downtime of the machine not the issue?
I
You,
I
you don't
don't
care
care about
about.
the downtime in the machine because my goal right now is to make and ship 28 carabiners per day.
Gotcha.
And that is basically one pallet of cores, one pallet of scales. As a happy coincidence, they worked out to be the exact same. So if I make a batch of each, I'll have 28 good carabiners to ship at the end of the day.
Okay.
The thing that bothers me is the human time involved.
Yeah.
So I'm rethinking my strategy. I may go to tabs, which may actually be the labor saving method, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I could do half as many screws, might also be an option, or half as many screws plus tabs. But I don't really know of any other way of doing it.
I have an idea. It's kind of the tab method, but combined with something else. And I don't
Okay.
know if this will work. I've never seen anything like this before, but this is just a thought. Could you Do you have a vacuum plate right now?
Nope.
Okay, so you're screwing that sheet down or taping it down?
So I start by securing the sheet with like 4 screws on the edge and a washer. Like basically just some fairly minimal work holding to keep the sheet down. The
Okay.
machine drills all the holes, then I put the screws in, and then it contours it.
Okay.
So the work holding for drilling the holes is fine, but not great. I wouldn't want to do any milling with it. But then once I get to the contouring, it's not a problem. It's got 2 screws on each part, and it's golden.
Okay. So here's my thought, and I don't know if this would work well or not. This might be a bad idea. But could you hold it in the corners like you're doing, do all of the machining without breaking through it, and then maybe contour the edges in some locations, and then have a top plate that bolts on with 4 screws that has strategic pockets to separate out all the individual pieces. And that way you're holding down the very last operation is you stick that top plate on, and the advantage of that is that you can have 4 bolts and it'll hold them all down at the same time. It'll have pockets in strategic locations where you can break that tab off, and you won't be able to do a full profile, but you should be able to blend everything, I would think.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how that's different than tabs
The
because
difference,
the
because you don't have to
the
put it.
parts are fairly tightly packed.
Okay.
I think there's 3 millimeters between them, and I'm using a 2.5 millimeter end mill.
When you're tabbing them, are you finished profiling them, or are you going to pop them off and then just like sand them?
I mean, I haven't tried the tabs yet, but I would probably pop them off and then stick them on a belt sander to get the remaining off. Then they go in the tumbler. So a little bit of inconsistency isn't going to hurt anything.
Okay, then you're going to be fine. You don't need a top plate. That's way too much work for what you're trying to do.
Yeah. I think I just put in like 12 screws or something and then do tabs.
Yeah, that's going to be the best method for sure.
But this whole like do 200 screws thing is not going to work.
Yeah. No, that's a much better solution. Top plate idea is an interesting idea. I've never thought of that before, but
with a different part it would work.
Yeah. But no, you're right. Tabbing will be the best, especially if you're tumbling it afterwards. What you could do to make your life a little bit easier, though, is do you have a belt sander?
Yes.
So what I would do is I would put all the tabs on the outside flats, if you
Yep.
could, and then I'd make a jig where you just pop it in that jig, and you have 2 stops that hold your the jig from running into the sander itself. Stick it on there and just go until it's flat, and then that'll give you really consistent tab removal.
I could even stack up a bunch of them
Yeah.
and do a whole bunch at once too.
Mm-hmm.
That's not so bad. All right, tabs it is. Let's see. I'm trying to figure out how the best make the sheet not a noodle, because the problem I have now is the sheet clearly bows when I clamp it on the edges. It bows up,
Mm-hmm.
or at least the sheets I have. I suppose different ones might. No, yeah, they always bow up. Never mind. Yeah, so they bow up like this, and which is fine because I'm just drilling, which pushes it down, and then I use screws to hold it down. But if I don't have that extra clamping force from the screws,
You're going to need to drill holes and add screws strategically throughout your jig. You're not going to get rid of all your screws,
okay,
but
so still do 12 holes. So.
Yeah. So you'll just do something just like, every 3 parts, have a screw go down or something. Ideally, if you had the ability to do a vacuum plate, what I would do is I would have it vacuum down so I don't have to put any screws in, and I would have the holes that gasketed out. I would do those first, and then I would bolt down to it, and I would probably leave the vacuum on because that would help with everything. And then at the very last, when it breaks through, that's when you could turn the vacuum off because it's not going to do anything, and then you're just doing your profile, your inner stuff.
Yeah, which I think is basically like these scales are so simple. They are 2 holes, 2 countersinks, and a profile.
Yeah. Are you not patterning these?
On some of them I will, but
Okay.
I haven't gone that far, and I don't think that's going to be an issue. That's basically my excuse.
Okay.
Honestly, the best way to hold these would be adhesive work holding, but
Yeah,
I
it
just
would.
hate that at scale.
Yeah, I do too.
And it would fill in. I'd have to make a different fixture because it would fill in all of my threaded holes. Well, I guess not if I put tape down, but
yeah. Yeah, no, that's one where adhesive or vacuum would be really good. So,
well, except I think vacuum wouldn't really be any different because by the time I'm contouring, it's going to be all full of holes anyway.
yeah.
Like 45% of the sheet is becoming air when I'm done contouring. So it's not really going to do anything. And the parts are so small, I couldn't get gasket individually around them.
Well, you wouldn't want to do that. What I was just thinking of is like you would just vacuum it to get the majority of everything done. And then you'd have to bolt or something for the last little bit. Tab it.
Yeah, I think the answer here is to get really good at tabbing.
Yeah.
Put it on a flat where it's easy to grind off. And
are you going to chamfer the edges, or
I'm just going to tumble them?
You're just going to tumble them.
Yeah, because I definitely don't want to do an op2 on these on the backside. Mm-hmm. And if there's already one sharp side, there might as well be 2.
Gotcha. I wasn't sure if you tried to have them beveled where at least, like, I knew you're going to tumble them, but to have a small beveled edge to assist on the side that's going to be facing out.
On the side that's facing. Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. No, I don't think it's necessary.
Okay.
I'm chamfering the not so tactical cores now, but that's really just to make sure there's no onion skin more than anything.
Yeah. How's that process been going? Has it been going pretty smooth?
Well, I've still only done like a dozen of them, but it seems to be working. The one thing I learned is because before we talked about using shoulder bolts, and originally I was just drilling an 1/8 inch hole and then putting an 1/8 inch shoulder bolt into it. That was too much wiggle room, and sometimes they would line up and sometimes they wouldn't. So I changed to boring a precision 1/8 inch hole with a just light sliding fit with the shoulder bolts, and that seems to work a lot better.
Are you pre-drilling or are you just boring straight through?
I am using the only drill. Well, the only drill that's the right size that I have in the machine, which is like a 50 thou or something like that. So it's a very small pre-drill, but it is a pre-drill, which will help some.
Yeah, okay. I was just curious.
I think it's the tap drill for the odd 80 screws.
Yeah, that'll be like
so it's a very small hole.
Should be
it's
if you're
it's a 1.35 millimeter, whatever that works out to.
I think that's a .051 if I remember correctly.
Something like that.
Yeah. Well, cool. That sounds like it's at least progressing smoothly.
I had to switch to an 1/8 inch chamfer mill instead of my traditional 1/4 inch.
Mm-hmm.
And all of my shoulder bolts slowly get a little bit of a trim, but that's fine.
Yeah, that's not going to hurt anything.
Other than that, it's been pretty smooth. I just spent a lot of money on titanium.
Are your shoulder bolts brass or aluminum or steel?
Oh, they're steel.
They're steel? Okay.
Yeah. Which is good because I've already broken at least one of them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do you snap the head off or snap it in the hole?
So underneath the shoulder, there's like a thread clearance, and then the thread, it snapped right there at the thread clearance.
Gotcha.
The thread relief. Though in retrospect, that one that I broke, I may have been testing my pneumatic wrench on, which we don't want to use with 440s, by the way. That was the decision I came
to. Probably because you snapped one off.
Yeah. Literally right before we started this, I got on eBay and I invested in a used 12-volt DeWalt drill. I have like a normal size DeWalt drill, but it's very big.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got the little baby 12-volt one, which fits in the machine better. It has the clutch, so I figure I can use that on the 440 screws.
Yeah. That'll do well for that.
Yeah.
I actually have one of those right up there.
I've always wanted one.
So, well, I got the original 12 volts back when I was in high school, just to kind of have, because I did so much stuff and I didn't have any money. So I just got some cheap 12-volt ones, and I ended up selling those. And then when I got the 20-volt stuff, I was happy with it. But then for some reason, I ended up with some more 12 volts, but they were the 12-volt brushless ones. I forget exactly the series of events that led me to getting those. But I was amazed when comparing them to the 20 volts I previously had that they're basically the same amount of power.
Yeah.
Like, they're very close. And they're small. They're a lot smaller, so I like them a lot.
The funny thing is, I looked at buying the Harbor Freight 12-volt drill, and the drill itself is like $40. It's like, all right, pretty easy decision. But then you're like, oh, but I need a battery, and then I need the charger. And at that point, it's more expensive than me just buying the used DeWalt drills off of eBay.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Hopefully that'll work. I need to order some of the adapter bits. I tried putting the Allen wrench for the A80 in my normal DeWalt drill, the 20-volt one, and the chuck doesn't even close that far. So I'll have to get some hexes. I tried wrapping it in tape, and that had the added benefit of acting like a slip clutch, but it also slowly slipped out of the tape, and I gave up on that.
Fair enough. I do have some good news that happened today as well, though. So, a customer who I've been working on this project probably since the October of last year. It's kind of been going on, maybe even longer than that. It might have been August of last year. It's been a long time project, and it's been making slow progress. Basically, reverse engineering a muzzle device. It's not like a silencer or anything like that. It's a muzzle compensator that was used in, I believe, the Vietnam War. And I got a customer who's wanting to make a replica of it, and it involves sheet metal parts that get formed, and they wanted it perfectly junk because the way that they were made in the past was just like, it looked like someone beat them in place with a hammer.
Which they might have.
For the originals. And having something that has all those defects is harder than making something that's actually perfect. And so there's been a lot of back and forth, and I'm finally to the point where they're happy with it, and they're going to place an order for a couple hundred of them. So
That's been a long time.
It's been a long time coming, and it's outside of our normal because it's making a press brake jig. It's going to involve welding. It's going to involve heat treating. It's going to involve tumbling, laser engraving. CNC machining is very little of this overall job. But it's kind of it's one of those jobs that I kind of took on back whenever I was taking on a lot of stuff, just to try to see what stuck. And so it'll be interesting to see how this one goes now that we're more busy with other stuff. If it's going to be something, I mean, it's priced really well. Like I'm going to do really well on it, but it's might be pulling away from what's important for the business to continue to grow. So it'll be a very interesting kind of experiment.
So we're one of those jobs where the opportunity cost is your biggest cost in it.
Mm-hmm. Granted, we've racked up a lot of time in it and haven't got paid a dime yet. So it's one of those things where I need to make my money back from the time that I've invested in it so far. But it's
cost fallacy.
Sunk cost fallacy, yes, but it's also one of those jobs where like the material cost is basically nothing and it's all just labor. And if I can, it's one of those jobs that if it was to keep going, I could justify maybe hiring or outsourcing most of the labor to someone else, and then it could become something that's more passive than active.
Yeah.
Once I get all the bugs worked out, and I can find the right type of business that I could be like, here, make me 50 of these, and then I take and sell 50 of those to this other guy. Because I'm doing all the R&D work, and I've got a shop that I talked to a while back, and they gave me a price where I could basically take the finished product, hand it over to them, and they would do all the work, and I would still have a decent margin on top of it.
It sounds like a good deal.
So, if we get to the point where we're so busy that I can't do that, so, but, anyways, excited / nervous about that.
Yeah.
But, and then we're trying to get all the jobs that we currently have done before Thursday, because we're not going to be in on Friday. So I'm going to be gone Friday through Tuesday, and Weston's going to be gone all next week.
I would warn people that would be a late podcast episode, but even when we record on time, my publishing isn't always punctual.
Yeah.
So they'll just be used to it at this point.
So I won't be here on Monday, but I will be here for the Wednesday podcast. Although it'll be pretty short because I will have been gone for most of it.
Yeah.
So I won't have much to add. Unless this week turns out to be crazy in some way, which has been known to happen.
Oh, I'm sure.
How's your Better Desk stuff coming?
So other than working on the pen is a strong word. Other than doing a small amount of tinkering in Fusion, I have done nothing for Better Desks. I've been all carabiner.
Okay.
The one exception was that I tested a step in the algorithmically generated artwork process, which is I need a spline to be a closed circle with variation in height on Z. So it will be a 3D sketch. And I need to make sure splines worked in 3D, and they do. And because I know that, then the artwork I have in mind is at least theoretically possible. The amount of manual editing is still yet to be seen, but at very least, it is theoretically possible.
So is this the artwork you're trying to wrap around the pen?
Yes, though it's not so much wrapping it around the pen as it is building a series of 3D sketches that I'm going to trace.
Have you considered doing the wrap anymore?
Yes.
Or
at least with this one, though, if it works, if this method works, it's going to be simpler than wrapping it.
Okay.
Basically, so I'm going to try to do the one that's just like the maze art, but on a cylinder. The other pattern I have planned is basically a series of distorted rings where it'll start on one end with like a circle, and then we will apply some noise to that circle in Z. So we'll pattern that circle up, and then we'll distort it, and then we'll pattern that circle up and distort it, and the distortions will build along the edge of the, along the length of the grid. Or
so you just distorting it kind of like noise, like vertical. Like so you'll have a circle, and if you get to the top, you could have like a squiggly line circle. It'll still be a circle, but it'll just be like crazy.
Yeah, so it'll be a series of circles being stacked up that get progressively crazier.
That sounds really cool.
Or potentially, I start in the middle with a pre-distorted circle and distort in both ways going outward. I'll have to do some testing there.
Mm-hmm.
But hopefully that'll give something kind of cool.
I think that'll look really cool.
The one thing I'm worried about is this now becomes a 4-axis toolpath, and I'm really hoping I don't have to buy the manufacturing extension or pay for it for a month to do that. I think I can do it with a 2D contour and a wrap, but I'm not 100%.
Gotcha. Yeah. It'll be a fun one.
So at some point I'll test those. I have some 1-inch titanium that I'm round bar that I may stick on my 4th axis and do some test cuts on and sell off like a batch of 5 or something of those to the Patreons. Just be like, hey, this is a taste. I don't know.
Yeah.
It'd be like one of the coins, but a cylinder.
Speaking of coins, that Kickstarter's ended already, right?
Oh, I totally forgot about that. We haven't talked about that. The Kickstarter is still going, but it is sold out.
Okay.
So we sold out in about 3 or 4 days again. We did not meet our stretch goal of selling out in 2 days where we would have introduced the brass coins. But
gotcha.
We sold out relatively quickly, which is good because we didn't do much to promote it. So I'm happy with the results on that.
Nice. So how many did you sell in total?
50. Exactly 50.
Exactly 50.
Because that's the limit that we limited ourselves to.
That's awesome.
So I figured 50 I could knock out in a weekend and not detract from main projects.
Well, that'll be a nice little bump.
Yeah.
So
a little extra cash. I think the current plan now is to do a big Kickstarter and then a little Kickstarter and then a big Kickstarter and a little Kickstarter.
I like that.
And maintain that pattern.
That gives you the ability to both hit your goals, but also not stress out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because doing 8 Kickstarters a year isn't stressful at all.
Yeah. Well, it will be, but you don't have to do all of them as massive productions. And your big ones don't have to be as big if you've got some smaller ones mixed in.
Yeah. And actually, now that Scott is here, this Kickstarter was very little effort for me. I'm not sure that I read through the campaign until we launched. I recorded the video for it and edited that, but that was the vast majority of my work. And I made the first batch of coins.
Nice. Oh, yeah. Zometry. Get your parts in?
My part is still on my shelf.
Oh, my goodness.
I need to get to it. It still just hasn't been a huge priority for me.
No.
And it's starting to fall into the category of tasks that I put off for so long that it feels like a really big task.
Yeah.
Even though it'll take me like 25 minutes or whatever. But
with how long it's taking you to get this one Zometry part done, has the thought crossed your mind that maybe Zometry would be a hindrance to the business rather than an asset?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Just curious.
I'm very slow at setting up and programming and machining, and I know that. But also, I don't have a deadline, so I don't really care, and that's half the problem.
Okay.
I'll get to it eventually. That'll be fine.
Oh, that's funny. Fair enough.
And I want to remind you, I did not request the part. I looked at the application, and they sent me the material.
That's true. So you should be good there.
I was not intending on doing this now.
Yeah. Me and Weston, speaking of Zometry, had an interesting conversation today. We do a lot of pretty large parts on Zometry, but the smaller parts, which might be why Cervin has kind of gone that direction. The material cost versus the payout is like so much smaller. Like the material cost is so much smaller percentage of
Yes.
the total payout. And so if you can do good on those, your at least your material cost is significantly lower. And it's all basically machine time at that point in programming. So I could definitely see why what they're doing is working a lot better than what we've been doing, because we've been getting a lot of the bigger stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's a good argument for like the Pocket NC as my next machine for making Xometry parts.
Mm-hmm.
Small, highly complex precision parts.
Yeah. There's a lot of benefit to the smaller parts. Like I got a small job right now that I'm working on where my material cost is literally under 5% of the job cost. And it's like I almost never have that. My material cost is almost always a minimum of 30%, 30 to 50% range is where my material cost is almost always. So sometimes even greater. Like I've had jobs where my material cost has been 80% of the cost of the job. And whenever you're running a business like what we're running it as, so we're doing the profit first.
Yep.
And so we have a percentage that goes into our operating expenses. And whenever we take on jobs where the material cost is 80%, the business is losing money no matter how well that job pays. Because there is not enough money going into OpEx to sustain the business. Because only X percentage goes into OpEx, and if we keep taking jobs where the material cost is a greater percentage of the job than what OpEx can sustain, our OpEx accounts is going to shrink and we're going to go bankrupt.
Interesting. Now, I would say that's a problem with the percentages that you're using. However, the profit first system kind of assumes a standard, like it assumes all of your jobs are the same.
Yes.
And that's the problem you're running into.
That is definitely a problem we're running into. But I would argue that if you were constantly taking jobs where your material cost is over 50% of the job, it's going to be hard to sustain in general because you're not going to have enough cash flow to build up to where you can accept those jobs without constantly being on really large, without having to take out loans or have a large line of credit, because it's going to take so long for you to actually make money that even if you are quote unquote making money, you're gonna have to take on a lot of risk to keep that flowing. And because if you start scrapping parts or you start running into broken tooling or anything along the road of that path, your business is in big trouble. And so we've been trying to only accept jobs where OpEx is guaranteed to be funded based off of the percentages we have set up right now. And I think that has made a major impact in why we're doing better.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those things that, like, we set up profit first when we first set up the business, but we've been paying closer attention to it in the last 2 or 3 months and actually looking back at our jobs and making sure that the account is growing, and that allows us to actually have money left over to buy stuff with.
Yeah.
So
I have, over the last couple weeks, been kind of working on maturing the Design the Everything finance and all of our business stuff. And part of that was opening up, actually I already had it, but relabeling a bank account I had as our profit account. And so now I set aside profit from every time it comes in. Now, I'm doing that with the full knowledge and understanding that I'm certainly going to need that money back in the business later to pay expenses before it comes to me. But I figured I'm building the habit, and it's kind of out of sight, out of mind, which helps.
Yeah. And that's the thing that he always stresses is never tap into that in the book, because that forms bad habits. And I say that tongue in cheek because we do that right now. And we haven't taken anything out of the profit account. That stayed pretty consistent. We have taken stuff out of the tax account, which arguably is worse.
Yep.
But I would also argue that most people don't actually set aside taxes throughout the year, most businesses. And so we've taken money out and we're paying it back currently.
Yeah.
And so, and we've had to take it out in the past just because of the problem that I mentioned earlier, where we were accepting jobs where the material cost was greater than what our percentages are at. So, and our OpEx account is a pretty high percentage of the total revenue. So, like if we go any higher, we're not going to be able to take as much home because the only account that we could take from is owner's pay, and our owner's pay account is still pretty low as a percentage of the business. So it's one of those things where it's forcing us to make better business decisions, which is what Profit First is supposed to do in the first place.
As my cash flow and everything gets a little bit steadier and a little bit higher, I'll slowly build out that system more. On that note, so we have been working on advertising, and for a while there, we were at like 1.5, 1.75 return on investment. Depending on what people buy, we start breaking even around 1.75 return on investment. So if we spend $100 and we make $175, that's kind of where it's worth advertising for us. So that's where we started at. And then we got to like 2, and this last week we were at 3.3 return on investment, which is like printing money.
That's awesome.
I actually have a huge amount. Well, not a huge amount. I have several orders that I need to ship tomorrow morning. I couldn't do it today because of holidays. Thanks, federal holidays.
That's awesome.
But that has been nice, and if that keeps up, then things are looking pretty good. The thing we are experimenting with now is we doubled our advertising budget, and we're going to see if that doubles the amount of sales at the same return on investment. So I'm not sure how doubling our budget scales, if that just means twice as many sales, or if that means 1.2 times as many sales, because then it obviously won't be worth it for us.
Well, I think there'll be a tipping point where it'll definitely
there's a balancing point. Yeah,
there's a balancing point, and as you sell more on Etsy will promote your stuff more, and so that in itself,
our Etsy has been dead. Our Etsy has been dead.
This
is our website? This is our website.
Oh, that's even better.
Our Etsy right now is doing maybe $60, $80 a month.
Oh, wow.
And our website, if this last week keeps up, will be at $1,500, $1,600 this month.
Dude, that's awesome.
Next month, I should say. If it keeps up awesome. This rate.
That is phenomenal.
It's definitely the biggest, a Kickstarter that is 25% bigger has way less impact on the business than 25% weekly online sales.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be really nice if we can keep that up. If we can get to $1,000 a week in online sales, we'll be golden. That'll be huge.
Yeah, that'll make life a lot easier for you guys, because then your Kickstarters are not going to be funding the business so much as filling in the gaps.
Or driving growth. That's really what I would like to see. Is, right now we're on the saw blade pattern of we have a Kickstarter, we shoot, our cash shoots up, we slowly taper down until the next Kickstarter cash shoots up. I would like to see it be, flat up, flat up, flat up. That's ideal.
You're always going to have the sawtooth down, but hopefully it's at a higher level than where it was before.
Well, I mean, not necessarily, because as long as our online sales are more than our weekly burn, we'll be fine.
Yeah, but what I mean by that is, even if you're trajectorying up, your kick is still gonna, it might help your slope, but it's gonna, if you see what I'm saying, it's not gonna be continuing up at the same pace that kick was.
Oh, yes. Yeah, it's never gonna be as fast as the Kickstarter, but
yeah.
Hopefully the pen does really, really well. That would make our life much, much easier.
Awesome. So I've been seeing so many different advertisements for pens.
Have you?
On Instagram, as I've been helping out with all this stuff. And there's a lot of really cool ones. That Smooth Precision Pens He does a lot of stuff. I mean, he's built a business off of just pens.
Yep.
Now, granted, they just rebranded, but I mean, he's got 5 or 6 or more machines just running pens full time. So I mean,
what was their old name? They rebranded, and I can't keep track of them anymore. I never remember their name. I never remember. Urban Survival Gear.
Urban Survival Gear.
Yep.
Yeah.
I guess I get why they rebranded, but man, I can see it hurting them. I hope it didn't hurt them. It hurt them in my brain.
No, it did not hurt them. It made them much better. So
okay, well that's good.
I never watch Instagram live streams, but not long after they rebranded, he did a live stream where he was talking about the business, and it was pretty interesting listening to him talk, because he basically said that before, his business was not focused, and he focused in on a niche, and it's made his web traffic like quadruple, because he's like, people that are looking for pens, I'm the pen guy now.
Yeah, and that sounds right.
And so it's done wonders for his business, which is, it's one of those things that I've always wanted to do, but I've never had the courage to just focus on one thing like that.
I feel like I've been telling you this for 38 episodes.
Yeah. But I don't have a product that I can stand behind yet that I feel like I could do.
Your service is a job shop. That's a product.
It's a product that I have. It's much harder to scale than, at least for me, it has been, because I've pushed this. I have gone to customers. I have knocked on doors. I've handed out business cards. I have done a lot of stuff locally. Now, granted, we haven't done much online on that front, and so there is an argument that could be made there for sure. But honestly, I didn't even know where I'd begin with that. Like have
you read Built to Sell?
No.
Read Built to Sell. My biggest complaint against that book is it's designed for service businesses, and we are a product business basically. But half that book is about turning a service into a product, basically.
Okay.
And you may find some interesting things there. It doesn't perfectly map to machine shops, but it'll get you on the right track, I think.
I also had another thing that happened that I completely forgot about now, but I'm remembering now. We crossed some sort of threshold with McMaster Car.
Did you get the catalog?
We got the catalog.
I'm so jealous. That's how you know you're a real machine shop.
We got the catalog, and we've got next day shipping for the same price as regular shipping.
Oh, you didn't already have that?
No, we didn't have that.
I've always gotten next day. It's because I'm close to Chicago, where they have a hub. All of my shipping is next day.
Oh, my shipping is like, it used to be 2-day, and we got the catalog, and they switched to same day or next day.
Okay.
And so that's the like we got this package in the mail, and we're like, we didn't order anything from McMaster Car. We opened up, it's the catalog. We're like, what? And then Weston went to order something on McMaster, and he's like, it says it'll be here the next day. I'm like, well, don't select that. Like, I don't want to spend $1,000 trying to get this stuff. He's like, no, that's my only option. It's like that, or like same day. I'm like, what? So, anyways, we're next day with McMaster, and we got the catalog.
Yeah, I've always been next day, but good for you. I'm jealous of your catalog.
Yeah,
I'm gonna frame our first McMaster catalog and put it on the wall.
So, anyways, that was kind of cool, because I've seen that catalog at a lot of different places, and actually having one show up is like, so we've done a decent amount. Then we're doing good.
You need to total up all of your McMaster sales and tell me what the threshold is. Then I'm going to start ordering more things through McMaster until I hit that and get the catalog.
I don't know if it's an amount or if it's I don't know what it is, but
lifetime value of customer. Or, I don't know.
Yeah.
I've been using McMaster a lot more recently, that's for sure, as I'm starting to care about speed more.
We also upgraded. So Haas was running a promotion, which it was basically Amazon Prime for $100 or $50.
Oh, yeah.
Something like.
I saw that when I was poking around on the website.
So we did that, and that's been super awesome, because we basically have next day shipping on everything now. Our
Okay.
tooling, our material, anything from McMaster, anything from MSC, um, everything's pretty much next day. So when we run into problems, it doesn't really cost any extra to have it next day.
Yeah, that's great for Xometry.
Yeah, it is, because like what we've got in the habit of doing is at the end of every day, we'll at about 4:30 to 5, that kind of window, we will start looking at Xometry, clearing everything off the board, picking out our jobs for the next jobs we want to do, and then ordering material and tooling, and then having it show up the next day. And that way that we can start working on those jobs as soon as we free up time. And so our turnaround has been a lot better, and we're almost never waiting on anything at this point now. Now it's just how fast can we get stuff through the shop. So, which is really nice.
Yeah, I definitely go back and forth a little bit on waiting on me versus waiting on stuff. For example, I could have ordered the titanium a long time ago for the carabiners, but I waited a long time because I wanted to be sure that my process was proven. So I was waiting for me to prove out the process. And that, I could have been an extra, 4 days or 5 days ahead of where I am now.
Yeah.
If I had been faster.
Well, I will say, in that particular case for you, because I've been in the same boat, a lot of the times you're holding on to cash a lot closer. And so it's not, if it was just a business, and if you were at a different shop and you ran into this, you'd probably would be ordering everything much sooner. But because you're so directly tied to that cash, it all has great value to you, and you want to be extra careful anytime a dollar goes out, because that's how we are. And the nice thing about the Xometry stuff is that we can pull the trigger pretty much instantly because we know what we're going to do, we know what we need, and all that stuff. But for our bigger stuff, we're still that way. Like that customer's project, one of the things that's taken so long is that we order stuff from Send Cut Send to get laser cut. We have to wait for it to show up. We try to do everything we can with that, and we'll make new dies, and we'll try pressing old parts and new dies that don't quite fit, but we just want to make sure everything's working good. And then we'll order the parts, and then we're waiting on those. And so it makes it a lot more drawn out whenever you're as cash sensitive to that stuff.
And that is exactly why I stopped using Send Cut Send, is because it forces you into larger batches. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to do that. I actually realized I made a mistake when I was ordering the material. Why did I order enough for? I ordered enough for like 300 carabiners. Why did I not get enough for, 100 of them or a week's worth or whatever? And make those first to make sure everything works before I order the second batch. Mm-hmm. And that would have spread out the cash consumption a little bit, and just kind of generally made things smoother. But I was in the mentality of, I might get a little bit better of a price. And I think I got like $100 or $200 off of the $4,000 order. Mm-hmm. But honestly, I would have just rather had my cash longer.
Yeah. It's definitely a balancing act. Whenever you start to have net positive cash, it's a lot easier to make that call to go ahead and just spend that money. And that's when you can start really making strides in growing your business, because you can take advantage of those larger batch sizes. Which is one of those things which I've never understood about the continuous improvement podcast is, and lean in general, is how do people who are trying to be as lean and keep as little inventory on hand as possible not take advantage of like some of the insane material discounts you can get if you order like a bundle of material at once versus ordering it, like, say if I burn through 3 bars a week or 10 bars a week and I order 10 bars every week, do they work out a deal with the supplier? Says, hey, I'm going to order 10 bars every week and it's going to be this amount. That way their on-hand inventory is low. Like, I wonder how that stuff works in the background.
So from having worked in several lean businesses and worked in a lean business and worked in purchasing, the discount on getting larger amounts of material tends to not actually matter as much as you would think. It's easy to go, hey, I'm saving 20% on this batch of material, but really you're saving like 3 cents on a widget, and keeping that cash in your hand, like it's the time value of cash, and keeping it in your hand for longer is worth more because you can invest that same amount of cash in, let's say a different mill or a robot or more labor, just by keeping it around longer. And then also you're saving money by not needing to store it. So, if you like my last job, which was the opposite of lean, we stored so much material and in process inventory. And literally, we could have had a tenth of the space with the same amount of production. But instead, we were paying for all of that warehouse space because we were storing material.
Well, let me put it to you in a slightly different way. I had a job where I was looking at making about 4,000 parts. It wasn't a job that I got, but it was one that I was quoting. And the material cost came out to be, it was something like 160 sticks of aluminum, and it was under $4,000. But whenever I priced out, say, 20 sticks of material, it was like $3,000.
I think part of it is negotiating with your vendor.
And so, like,
were you getting those from a material supplier, or was that like Online Metals or something?
So I was comparing Online Metals to a local material supplier to a couple other online places. And all the online places, the discount was significantly less than my local supplier. But my local supplier was the same, if not more expensive than online, until I crossed a certain threshold. And then once I crossed that threshold, my price plummeted way below anything I could get online. But I had to order it in a high enough volume where they would give me that discount.
Yeah. So, I mean, one way of handling it is going to the customer or going to the vendor and saying, hey, I need, 10,000 pounds of aluminum. I'm going to write you a PO right now. I would like that in 10 releases over the next 10 weeks.
Yeah.
And then you're spreading out your cash flow some there, and you still get the buy-in discounts. The other thing is, once you start having the purchasing power to do this, is you can go to a vendor and you can say, okay, we buy 100,000 pounds of steel from you every month. Here is a contract saying we will continue the spending. We want to be able to order in small quantities but maintain our discount.
Yeah.
We had deals like that at my last job. The very non-lean one is, hey, we're going to do business with you. We promise. Give us discounts.
Okay. That makes sense. And I figure businesses do that, but I was just curious because, like on the smaller scale, it makes a big difference. But on the larger scale, I'm sure people are working out those kinds of deals all the time. Speaking of, well, not really deals, but something that I was thinking about because I was thinking about material. We have a customer who we shipped 100 parts, and it was a really expensive order, and the package is missing.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Xometry or otherwise?
Otherwise. So we've sent it UPS, and we've issued a lost package claim. It was shipped second day air, and it was supposed to arrive Thursday last week, and it hasn't arrived. And the scanning stopped on Wednesday in the city it's supposed to be delivered in. But it was scanned on the delivery truck to that location. It never got scanned in at that location. So it's like it fell off the truck.
Yeah. I have seen several similar circumstances and never seen them end well.
Yeah. And what's really bad is that the customer in this case was in desperate need of those parts by Friday, and it now has customers screaming at him. And we don't have any more material, and we made all of his parts with scrap material because we didn't have enough time to get material. And so we're now out of material. It's going to be even longer to get the material. I have a little bit of material. I could make some of the parts, but not as many as he had ordered. And what makes this all the better is that he paid the invoice already. And so, yeah.
I mean, that's really not that big of a deal, and because you can always give him his money back.
True. It feels a lot more pressure on our end.
Yeah, it makes it feel worse for the customer. Is it the kind of thing where a incomplete batch is still better than no batch? Like, can you get him the ones you can get him now, and it'll help hold him over until the rest of the material comes in?
Maybe the problem that I have right now is one, we're going to be a partial week. Two, we've already filled up with Xometry orders, and we're trying to get everything off our plate before we leave because
Yeah.
we're both going to be gone. And then I'm going to be gone over the weekend. So is my cousin. My cousin's going to be gone all next week, and so I don't know if we're going to be able to get anything done for him for like at least a week or two at this point. And that's going to put him in a very bad spot if his package does not show up.
I mean, you can bug FedEx to the point, or whatever package delivery service, to the point where they are like literally sending someone down to the warehouse to go look for you.
Yeah.
But in my experience, when the package disappears, the package disappears. And the shipping providers I have known to do absolutely nothing. We had an incident at my last job where FedEx dropped off 5 pallets at the wrong address. The address on all of our stuff was correct. The address on all the paperwork was correct. And they like noted down that they delivered it to a different address. Like we had record of it going to the wrong address, and they like offered to refund the couple $100 shipping, but like nothing else. Like you just dropped off tens of thousands of dollars of parts at the wrong place, and they would do nothing to correct it.
Yeah.
And we had insurance, but they didn't do anything about it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's the one thing that I don't think we had on our package, which I'm realizing we probably should have. But if it doesn't make a lick of difference, I don't know.
My opinion is that most insurance offered by companies other than insurance companies are scams.
Yeah.
Or borderline scams.
So one thing that we did have happen, and this happened right before this, is the same. A UPS driver came and dropped off, and this was in the middle of all of the titanium parts from Xometry that were really stressful. The last day that I was supposed to get them done on, the UPS driver dropped off the wrong packages at our address. And I stopped him when he was leaving. I was like, "Do you got any other packages for us on the truck?" He was like, "Nope, that's it." And I'm like, "Are you sure?" "Nope, that's it." And so he left, and we went inside and looked at the packages. He had given us the wrong packages. I didn't look at the label until after he had already left. Thankfully, he got to this next location and realized, and it was close enough that he realized what he had done, because he went to drop off the packages, and the packages he dropped off at our location were the ones for the other location.
Yep.
So he came back, but we lost about an hour on that stressful day of waiting for him to bring stuff. So
it was like when I guess this wasn't actually the postal service's fault or the shipping service's fault, but it's like when I ordered the spindle for my machine, rush next day air, and they shipped it to the wrong address for no apparent reason. It's like, oh gosh, come on, guys.
Yeah.
At least then I knew where it went. But
yeah. But anyways, that's gonna be stressful. But
we had a package show up. We got one of the Design the Everything boxes in the mail, and this thing looked like it had been to hell and back. Like it was beat up, it was taped. There were like 4 different labels on it, and it was one of the original generative coins. It went to Dubai, bounced around Dubai for a little bit, and they apparently couldn't find the address or recognize the address, and it came back.
Oh my!
So I had to reship that one back out again, and hopefully it makes it this time around. But it was like 3 months of this package bouncing around internationally before it found its way back.
That's insane.
It's actually not the first time it happened. I had one that bounced around the UK for like 6 months one time.
Jeez. Wow. Okay. Packages are fun.
Yeah. Honestly, the fact that the system works as well as it does is a miracle. I can't fathom the logistics for trying to move as many packages around the world as get moved around the world.
Oh yeah, for how little errors actually do occur, it is very impressive. It does put you in a very stressful situation when things do go south, and I'm hoping we can get this resolved in the package. Excuse
How
me.
far away is the receiving city?
Salt Lake City, Utah. So I'm not sure
Not
how far that
close.
is. Yeah, not close.
Not you can't drive there and yell at someone in a warehouse.
No, no,
I can't drive there and yell at someone in a warehouse. Too bad it's not
no.
like Indy. Then I can take care of it for you.
Yeah, no, it's a ways away. We'll see. The guy's super nice. He's honestly been really chill about everything so far. I'm probably putting more pressure on myself than he is, but I've been in his position, and I understand when he's got customers that are yelling at him that they
Yeah.
want their stuff back. So I want to do everything I can to help him have a good experience because he is a customer that could become one of my first regulars ordering the same parts over and over again.
Well, the way that you handle bad situations is honestly more important than the way that you handle good situations.
True.
So I would say get him some parts. Like it doesn't
Right.
matter if it's just six or whatever you have materials for. Get him
Yeah.
something. Go drive him to him if you need to.
Yeah.
And like I don't know if it is actually going to make a real difference. Sometimes it does.
Yeah.
Like in my last job, our customers would order 200 pieces at a time, but really they just had one installation crew that could do like 8 units a day. And
Yeah.
sometimes if we got them, 10 units one day and then 10 units the next day, and like it bought us time.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll have to do that then. I'll have to try to get them fit in. It hopefully we got everything programmed and set up, so it shouldn't be too bad. Um, I'll just have to fit them in.
Can you run them overnight?
No, I think you have to have an operator there. I don't have any. If I had a dual spindle, I could set them up in front of them.
Oh, lathe part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which my next machine, lathe wise, is going to be a dual spindle, no matter what. Like there's too many benefits to not do that. It just make life so much easier. Which we went down the rabbit hole of trying to figure out how to do a part stop again today, um, and we haven't found a good solution yet. Weston's thinking about calling and talking to Haas or Royal to see if either of them have a solution. But if not, we might have to make a product to solve the solution. It could be an industry wide problem, which would be kind of fun.
See, there's got to be an off-the-shelf product for this already. Like someone's figured this out.
The best that we can figure out is that people don't have this problem because they have bar feeders on their lathes. Bar feeder solves this problem, but
Yeah.
it's a really expensive solution that I still feel like there's a lot of smaller shops that'll still have this problem.
Oh, random report back. So I guess this was DMs, but at some point, Harrison and I were talking about the Haas CL1 lathe and how that would be as a potential future lathe for me. And I went and I talked to Fidget Things to get his take because he has one, and
Oh,
his reports were kind of mixed. He likes parts of it and he doesn't like parts of it. He says the bar feeder is kind of crap, and he would get it without that. He says the collet closer is a little bit janky, but you can get it to work. But I think otherwise reasonably happy with it. So if I got it, I would get it without a bar feeder, which honestly kind of pains me.
yeah.
But it's not like it feeds one bar at a time. It's a bar pusher. You can't load up 12 bars or whatever, which
Oh,
means you could
really?
just do a bar puller and get the same results.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So I like getting rid of that seems to solve a lot of the problems with the machine.
Just
It is
can
240-volt single phase.
can you get those with different? Do they sell like a Royal Collet system or something for those?
To my knowledge, it's 5C, which would be too small for basically anything else. I don't know. I don't know if it's like a
Well,
5C chuck on a A2-5 or whatever the normal interfaces is, but
okay,
or if it's just
because
a 5C spindle.
because Royal sells a 5C spindle, so I'm just curious what his problems are, because there's a lot of different spindles options that we were looking at today, and what we have, and I specifically got this because I knew it would be a problem. We got what they call a dead stop collet system.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what that is?
It should stay the same length when you close it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So most collet systems, what they do is they pull the 5C collet or whatever collet backwards. And if your stock is a different diameter, then depending on the taper angle of your collet system, your collet will pull either more or less back as the diameter varies, which can breed inconsistencies. And we got a dead stop, which means the collet stays put and it actually pushes over it. It basically pushes the taper onto the collet rather than pulling the collet into the taper. And so I'd be curious if changing systems like that would be possible in the CL1 and if that would solve any issues.
Couldn't tell you. I know it was the collet closer he was unhappy with. He says they basically took a manual collet closer and like put a pneumatic drawbar on there or something. Like they modified a manual system to be automated.
Interesting.
So it's a little janked. But it has the C-axis with live tooling option, which I think is what I would want and or need for doing my pens. So, and they run like, I don't know, 50K, which really isn't that bad for a non-Tormach lathe. Yeah.
50,000 RPMs?
No.
Or
dollars.
5K?
Dollars.
Oh, I was thinking like RPM. 50K.
No, that's insane for a lathe. I don't think I've seen a lathe go past like 6,000.
Sorry, I was thinking spindles, and still, like my mind, I was like 50K. Like, what are you machining at 50K? Yeah. Oh my goodness, that'd be fast. No, honestly, yeah, that's. Go ahead.
I'd say honestly, right now, if I had to choose a lathe today, and if money was an issue, but not like a huge one, like if I had, I don't know, $60,000 laying around or something to get this machine, I would probably go with a used Swiss.
Yeah.
Which would be a lot more of a learning curve, but I think better for what I want to do.
It would pay off in the long term better.
It'd probably be good for Xometry parts too.
Huge asterisks on that. Yes, it would be fantastic for some Xometry jobs. There's a lot of Xometry jobs I've looked at and gone, man, if I had a Swiss, I'd be killing it. Those jobs are few and far between.
At
least on my job board, they are.
But now, if you train the algorithm,
if you train the algorithm, it might be an awesome. But yeah, not always. Although I will say that typically those jobs, when you see them, are 5-digit jobs, and I just drool a little bit whenever I see the price on them and the quantity. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, if only.
I also figured that I could make like titanium fasteners because it's shockingly difficult to find titanium fasteners, and I could make fasteners specifically for knife makers that want everything to be titanium.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
I can undercut the market and only sell them at $2 a pop for a 440 screw.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
The more realistic, smart choice is probably the Slant Pro, though, the Tormach lathe.
Yeah.
Because they seem to be fairly capable. I wouldn't get my live tooling, but
honestly, if you got the gantry system, you could do some live tooling. I don't know if Tormach can index its head, but if you could, you should be able to do live tooling.
I don't know if it
can. Something tells me it can, because you almost have to if you're going to do any kind of internal-external threading. You have to know where your turret's at.
All you need is an indexing pulse. That's what my old Shoreline was. It just had a magnet on it and not a reed switch, a magnet reader switch, whatever those are called. And it would just pick up the, there would be one indexing point on the spindle, and that was enough for it to
Gotcha.
do threading, internal, external,
Gotcha.
single point threading.
Gotcha. Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Whereas if you want to do live milling, then you need a pretty good encoder on there.
Yeah. Which I mentioned that I don't have the tool orientation on there and that I'd seen it in a couple locations. The location I specifically saw it in is when you go to touch off tools and the arm lowers, the menu that tells you if you want to lower or raise the arm has the spindle orientation on it by default, even if you don't have the option turned on. And so I can see the orientation of the spindle whenever I'm setting up tools.
So that's why I thought that it might not be just a software thing for you, it might also be a hardware. Is because for like you may get the difference between a 60 count encoder and a 1200 count encoder or something like that.
Maybe it just is in degrees.
Yeah.
So I couldn't tell you, but it's I know it's a software deal because you can turn it on.
Yeah,
I can turn it on.
That kind of proves the point.
So it's just software. There's no hardware difference. So, which speaking of software versus hardware difference, I need to go back to my university because they have a Haas mini mill, and I was machining some parts on it, and without high speed machining turned on, it was going so slow, and it was jerky. Like I was doing some surface. It was like it was just horrible for surfacing. And so I went and I turned on the high speed machining feature, the tryout mode on, and it took cut my part time down by 15 to 20%, and the machining was just smooth, and I was like, why don't they have this turned on all of them from the factory?
Because they can charge you for it.
It's because they can charge you for it. I understand that, but at the same time, it is so ubiquitous at this point that having it turned off seems spiteful.
Yes.
Like another feature in a different software. Adobe. You cannot rotate your PDFs without paying for it.
Yeah.
That just seems really spiteful when I can load it up in Chrome or Edge or anything else and rotate it. So anyways, stupid stuff like that just ticks me off. So anyways, I'm done venting for now. I think I'm done for everything else this podcast. You get I guess that seals it.
I'm tired.
I'm tired too. For those of you that have been hanging out with us as we've been descending into madness, we appreciate your company. And hopefully our descent has not affected you in any negative ways. Please like and share and tell all your friends. And this is Harrison with Precision Ingenuity signing out with AJ from Design the Everything.
That was so loud. Bye.